Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Sports Most Football Shorts. I'm Barney Corkhill. I'm here with our football editor Matt Law, and we're here to talk about a bonus midweek round of Premier League fixtures. We've got 5 games to look forward to. Before we get into that, a quick update on the situation of our prediction competitions. I've been running throughout the season. 5 points for the correct score and 2 points for the correct result. That's win, draw, or loss. Matt is leading by 20 points, 407 points to 427 in Matt's favour, going into the final 3.5 game weeks of the season. I did make up 7 points in the last game week though, so if that happens every game week from now on, I'll be winning by 1 point at the depth, which is unbelievable drama, really. But a long, long way back for me still. And we'll start this weekend, as I say, only 5 games to look forward to in midweek. 2 of them actually involve Manchester United with a hectic fixture schedule. And we start with Manchester United. They play Leicester at 6 p.m. this evening, on Tuesday evening. It's second versus fourth in the table, but I don't know how you feel, Matt, but it doesn't really feel like that to me, just because Manchester United are going to make changes. We know that because they pretty much have to, because they're hectic schedule. So and they secured top 4 football last time out with that win over Aston Villa. Still a massive game for Leicester, obviously, after that 4-2 defeat at home to Newcastle last time out. Huge for them in terms of their top 4 ambitions. How do you see this one going?
Yes, like you say, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because you're not too sure. I mean, the interesting thing for me is just how many changes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer makes. Will it be, he's obviously going to make changes, but will it be changes as in, 4 or 5, or will it be, 9 or 10 in terms of, he's already said, Shoretiri and Amad Diallo might get a game. There's obviously youngsters elsewhere that might potentially come in, obviously squad players as well. Eric Bailly, fancy will play, Tunzabi, possibly Tellez. Players like that, Matic might get a start as well. So it's obviously very interesting to see. He's obviously got his eyes on the Liverpool game, doesn't he? He wants to win that one, even though top 4 secured, to dent Liverpool's chances is the one. He's obviously going to prioritise that game. So, after the Villa game from United, really good performance. I thought, obviously, good record at Villa Park United, but Cavani was come off the bench and was really good again. Obviously, new deal, hasn't he, for Edison Cavani till next summer, which is great news for the club. Fernandes was good again. Greenwood, really good form, and a really good win over Villa. Leicester, I mean, incredible game, wasn't it? The Newcastle game, just 4-0 down, scored twice late on, but to be 4-0 down at home to Newcastle. I know Newcastle have been okay recently, but that was, a shocker, wasn't it, from Leicester? And Leicester's running now. I mean, obviously they play Chelsea twice, don't they? FA Cup final in the league, and then Tottenham at home last game of the season. And you just feel like if Leicester were to lose this game, they'd really be looking over their shoulder. Obviously, West Ham lost, didn't they? Liverpool obviously still in the race as well. But I do expect now, that to be the top 3, and then battling for 4th. But it's a huge game for Leicester. I've just gone a draw here. You're not too sure how many changes Solskjaer's going to make. He's obviously going to be a much changed side, but I think they'll get a point at home to Leicester. Leicester will be strong, but James Maddison, I think they're managing his problems he's had, so he might potentially come out, especially ahead of the Chelsea FA Cup final. And I just think there'll be some changes from both sides, and I think they'll cancel each other out on 1-1.
Yeah, I did actually have the same down, but I'm going to have to change it now because I need to make up some ground. I mean, this is a really difficult one to call because we don't know how many changes Man United are going to make and who's going to sit out. I mean, if they start without Fernandes, without Rashford, without Greenwood, without Pogba, maybe even without Cavani again, if they choose to keep him for the start for the Liverpool game, that's a severely weakened United team. And you've already mentioned their defence. Harry Maguire's missing out probably through injury and probably would have potentially sat out anyway because of fatigue. So I think it's going to be a very second-string Man United side. And if you put that up against the full-strength Leicester side, and I think it could be a full-strength Leicester side. Obviously, they've also got one eye on the FA Cup final at the weekend, but they can't really afford to play anything less than full strength because they got, as you mentioned, really tough end to the season, and any drop points between now and the end of the season after that shock defeat to Newcastle really opens the door for that chasing pack, particularly Liverpool now with that game in hand after the rest of the chasing pack lost at the weekend. I think the defeats for the likes of West Ham and Tottenham really let Leicester off the hook a little bit in terms of their defeat against Newcastle, but we mentioned before that Newcastle game how important it was for them to go and win that. We said victory in that game could more or less secure a top 4 finish for them. going into a really difficult end to the season. Obviously, they didn't go and get that victory, and it's a massive blow to them. And, we've mentioned it a few times now, what happened to them last season could just start to be weighing on their head. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a loss at what to go for. As I mentioned, I did go for 1-1, but I think bearing in mind Man United's massive changes, and Leicester will probably be going and knowing that they need to win this one to keep the top four race in their own hands. I think I'm just going to side for Leicester winning this one. I'm going to go for 2-1. But yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised if I fell short on that one. But it should be a really interesting game. Obviously, massive for Leicester, not so big for United. You think in the grand scheme of their season, defeat for United in this game isn't really going to matter much. You wouldn't have said that a few weeks ago when they were second and third and not too far away in the table. But right now, it doesn't really matter that much for United. I'm just going for Leicester winning that one. Matt's going for a draw. Also this evening at 8:15, there's Southampton versus Crystal Palace. Both teams now safe. All three relegation places have been confirmed with 3 games left in the season. First time in Premier League history that's ever happened. Both safe, but Southampton 17th in the table. I mean, 10 points clear of the drop zone, obviously, but really, really disappointing. 13 defeats in their last 17 Premier League games. Since the turn of the year, they've just been dreadful. I think I'm right in saying they've picked up fewer points, maybe even scored fewer goals, or conceded more goals than anyone else since the turn of the year. So they've really plummeted down the table, and to finish 17th after such a bright start to the season would be hugely disappointing for them, even if they stay in the division. Obviously beaten by Liverpool last time out, could have got something out of that game. Alisson was good. Liverpool, it felt for a long time if it was going to be another one of those Liverpool performances where they have a lot of the ball, score 1 goal, but then can't get the second and get punished for it. But Thiago's goal late on confirmed the defeat for Southampton. Crystal Palace winners against Sheffield United last time out, 2-0, lifted them up to 13th in the table. I think if they finish there, they'll be pretty content with that. Pretty decent season, and I think they deserve quite a lot of credit for keeping going. As we've mentioned a few times, there's a lot of uncertainty around that club at the moment in terms of the manager, the players out of contract. A lot of uncertainty, so I think they've done well to actually keep going, keep fighting towards the end of the season. I don't expect them really to let off between now and the end of the season. This game looks like a tough one. Southampton look like they may have Danny Ings back available potentially in the squad. So yeah, again, this is a difficult one to call for me. Looking at it, it could be classed as a dead rubber. Not too much left to fight for either side. Southampton want to finish 17th, and Crystal Palace will want to finish as high up as possible. So yeah, I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this one. I could really separate them.
1-1, yeah. I mean, I agree with what you're saying about Palace. I think 13th would be a good season, wouldn't it? They're only 4 points off Wolves, got a game in hand on Wolves, so could finish 12th maybe. I don't think they'll catch, as I've said for a while, I do think it'll be Arsenal, Leeds or Villa in 9th, and then the other 2 obviously below them. But yeah, Palace, last time out against Sheffield United, they were really good. It's still, I mean, Sheffield United, they're obviously relegated, but it's still, I thought they were quite competitive in that game. Sheffield United, it was a good win. Obviously, Eberett's easy getting the assist and the goal. And I think Roy Hodgson speaking after the game, saying they think they can keep him this summer, which I think they will. But I think if he has another season like he's had now next season, I don't see him staying there at all. I think I remember saying, watching him in the Championship or when he was at QPR, and he was just miles ahead of it was down at Fulham, and he was miles ahead of everyone on the pitch. And this season, 4 goals, 5 assists in the league is not like standout numbers, but really good for a Palace side that have been struggling. He's played a lot of games. I think he's only missed 2 Premier League games this season, so good fitness, and he's been excellent this season. Yeah, Southampton, they've just completely gone. And I know they were okay against Liverpool, but what I said in the last podcast, the energy's down. It's essentially, I know they're missing Danny Ings, Oriol Romeo is obviously a big player, Bertrand, big player as well. They were all missing for that game, and they're 3 big players, but it's still a team that has enough quality to be higher than 17th in the league. Obviously, they're not going down, but it's just not good enough for me. I mean, they could push up. It's so tight down there, isn't it, from 17th to 13th, really? I mean, it's only 4 points between the 2 sides, so a lot could change. There are still 3 or 4 games left for some sides, but yeah, I thought you would go draw here, and as we want to go different, maybe I should just go the same as you, because I'd made that mistake with the Liverpool Southampton game and said 2-0 and then changed it, and it was 2-0. But anyway, I have actually gone 1-0 Palace here. Southampton, like I say, I just think they've gone. They've not been playing well recently. I think it's 5 without a win now in all competitions, and Palace have been pretty good, clean sheet last time out. Obviously against City they were poor, but yeah, good last time out. And yeah, I fancy Palace here 1-0.
Right, 1-0 win for Crystal Palace for Matt in that game. On Wednesday, there's a big London derby between Chelsea and Arsenal. Chelsea, obviously, huge win over Manchester City at the weekend. Come from behind. Aguero obviously missing the penalty, potentially the chance to kill that game off. And Chelsea storming back in the second half. Huge victory for them. Takes a lot of the pressure off, really. Going into, with one eye on the FA Cup final at the weekend, just 3 days later. So they might be thinking of resting players more so now for this game than they were. If they'd lost that Man City game, because they're still, very much in that top four battle, but they've now got things firmly in their own hands on 64 points. Arsenal beat West Bromwich Albion, relegated West Brom with that victory, but, still ninth in the table. Not really anything they can do between now and the end of the season to salvage their season. So how do you see this one going?
Yeah, he's not similar to the Leicester United game in the sense, like you say, you do fancy Chelsea will, obviously have one eye on the FA Cup final and make some changes. The City game last time out was, I know obviously City had the chance to go 2 up, didn't they, just before the break, and that very bizarre, Panenka penalty from Aguero that would have gone 2-0. But Chelsea in the second half, to be fair, I thought not even just the last half hour where they got their 2 goals. I thought from the 46th minute until the 93rd minute, whatever it was, they were really good. And City, strange formation from Guardiola. Obviously, there was changes in his team, but yeah, Chelsea really good. And I think the analysis that Jamie Carragher did about their, the defensive work under Thomas Tuchel and the Monday Night Football has been really good, isn't it? The way they defend is very impressive. One-on-one defending, very good in the midfield. The transition is very good, and they've got players with pace up front. I think Timo Werner's still question marks over whether he's good enough finisher to really, fire them to the title. But just players going forward, Ziyech has been much better recently, hasn't he? Obviously, Mount has been really good, and Pulisic has started to contribute as well. So Chelsea, I think, obviously, it could be an unbelievable season, couldn't it? Champions League final, FA Cup final, top 4. But, like I said last week, they could, if they finish top 4, lose the FA Cup final and lose Champions League final. It's still a good season, but you don't get any trophies, do you, if you finish in top 4? So big season for them. Arsenal, yeah, I thought they were pretty good against West Brom without being great. It was a nice game, wasn't it? West Brom at home, let's be honest. But, Smith Rowe, Pepe, Willian getting the goals. Some positives to take from that game, but I'm just struggling here, to be honest. I think the quality, I know we expect Chelsea to make changes, but I'm just finding it difficult to back Arsenal to get anything. Actually won the last 2 games between the sides, haven't they? Arsenal unbeaten in 3 since Chelsea, since 2019, last time Chelsea, and that was at the Emirates Stadium. So on an okay little run against Chelsea, Arsenal, but I just think the circumstances surrounding this game, Chelsea would be flying. Their squad's really good as well, Chelsea. They can make changes and still be really strong. Expecting a tight game, but yeah, I've gone Chelsea 1-0. Chelsea 1-0.
Arsenal at the moment, but quite a bit better, yeah. I think they're just quite a bit better than Arsenal at the moment, and I've gone for 2-1 in the end. I went for just because I expect Chelsea to make changes. Full strength against full strength teams. I'd expect Chelsea to win a bit more comfortably. I think it would be interesting to see who plays for Arsenal, because Mikel Arteta will probably have one eye on next season now, and we might get a few clues as to who is in his plans for next season. Obviously, the bright young talent you'd expect to be very much centre of those plans, but the likes of Aubameyang, who hasn't really been good this season on a lot of money after signing his new contract. Lacazette's been linked with a move away. Certain players, we might start to see them being faded out in these final 3 games of the season, with Arteta having one eye on next season. So it'll be interesting to see who plays for Arsenal. But yeah, even with changes expected for Chelsea, I just think they've still got more than Arsenal have, and they're a lot more solid. They're a lot more trustworthy. Thomas Tuchel's side isn't going to concede many goals. Obviously, he had that freak one against West Brom, but aside from that, they're not going to concede many goals in many games. And they're always capable of nicking one, even with a second string attack out. They've got great strength in depth, Chelsea, so they can afford to rest players. And it will actually be quite interesting to see if they do rest players, because obviously FA Cup final, massive game, the chance of a big piece of silverware is a huge chance for them that will be desperate to take. But what's more valuable for them at this stage of the season is it wrapping up top 4 spot or winning that Champions League, so winning that FA Cup, sorry. So it's it's a difficult one to weigh up. I don't expect him to make wholesale changes. He'll still want to win this game. He'll still know it's important for that top 4 spot, because if they go and lose, and those behind them then go and win, Liverpool maybe even win against United at Old Trafford, then their place in the top 4 looks a lot less secure, particularly with games against Leicester, difficult game, away to Villa, difficult game, coming up at the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how many changes Thomas Tuchel makes. I'm not expecting wholesale changes, so I think they'll still have enough to beat Arsenal. So I've gone for 2-1 to Chelsea in that one. On Thursday, there's a double header. Aston Villa versus Everton kicks us off. Aston Villa in 11th place, Everton up in 8th, just about kept their European hopes alive with that 1-0 win at West Ham at the weekend. Obviously, these two played just a couple of weeks ago. Aston Villa ran out 2-1 winners at Goodison Park. How do you see this one going, Matt?
Yeah, so it's a big one, isn't it, for Everton? As you say, the West Ham game was really big, wasn't it? A devastating defeat for West Ham, chances of top 4, but Everton, good goal from Calvert-Lewin, good defensive performance. Everton's away record this season, 3rd best in the Premier League. Been fantastic. 11 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats, and it just shows their problems at Goodison. Only the 15th best home record in the league this season, which is incredible when you think about where they are in the table. The fact they can still, they can mathematically still finish top 4. They could finish 5th this season. They're only 3 points off West Ham, the game in hand, and obviously 5th Europa League football would be great for Everton. But that's what's so interesting. I think obviously the title isn't wrapped up at this second, but it will be. Relegation obviously is, and I just feel like the top 4 race is a bit of a saving grace, really, because the end of the season could potentially peter out a bit if it was not much to play for. But the top 4, top 5, top 6, 7 is really interesting. And yeah, I think Villa against United last time out weren't great, if I'm honest. I thought United were comfortable for long spells. A really good goal from Bertrand Traore, wasn't it, to put Villa ahead. But United were really good in the second half of that game. And obviously no Ollie Watkins for this game, been sent off. Jack Grealish, don't expect him to play. So I'm just looking at that Villa attack without those two. I'm just struggling to really see where the goals are going to come from in this game. And Everton's away record, I just can't ignore it. I think that it'd be really good. They need to win more than Villa. I think Villa are going to finish probably 11th this season. I think Arsenal might fancy 9th now, and then Leeds maybe, and then Villa, which would be a good season for Villa. But Everton have got obviously higher ambitions than that. And yeah, I just fancy Everton here. The away record stands out for me. If their away record wasn't so good, I would just lean towards a draw, but really good on the road. So yeah, Everton 2-1.
Yeah, exactly the same. I don't think I'm going to change this one, because I think it is going to be 2-1. I agree. I think the away record is the deciding factor for me in this one. I think the two teams who are quite unpredictable, quite unreliable in some ways, but both capable of picking up victories in almost any game against almost any opposition they face this season. They've got the attacking players to do it, but as you say, Aston Villa missing 2 of their key attacking players. And Everton's away record just gives them the edge. And as you mentioned again, the prospect of having more to fight for. European football is still very much in their sights, and a victory here would lift them above Liverpool, maybe for only a few hours before Liverpool obviously go to Man United. But that's a difficult game for Liverpool. So if they then go and lose at Man United, Everton suddenly sit above Liverpool in the table with everyone on 35 games for the season. So they could still salvage a really good season, Everton. They have been inconsistent. They've hit a bad run of form at a bad time when, keeping up a good run of form, particularly at Goodison Park, as you say, if they'd picked up a few more points there, they'd be very much in that top 4 race. So they've shot themselves in the foot a little bit on that front. Don't expect them to really challenge for the top 4. Obviously, they're not out of it yet, but I don't really expect them to do that. They'd need to win all their remaining games of the season and hope a lot of other results don't go their way for that to happen. But the prospect of still finishing above Liverpool will be a massive carrot for them. And obviously, there's the Europa League and the UEFA Conference League, the inaugural season next season to qualify for. So I think they've got more to fight for. Their away record, as you say, is really good. And I can see a role reversal of the meeting a couple of weeks ago when Aston Villa won 2-1 away from home. I can see Everton doing the same here. So yeah, both going for 2-1 wins to Villa in that one. Manchester United, Liverpool, we just mentioned it briefly there. Obviously the standout fixture of any game week, the standout fixture of the English football calendar. This was one rearranged from not last weekend, the weekend before, after that got postponed because of fan protests against the Glazers. So it has packed United's schedule. It will be their 3rd league game in the space of 5 days, their 4th in the space of a week across all competitions. So as we mentioned for the Leicester game, and obviously we're filming this before the Leicester game's taken place, so we don't know what's going to happen in that one. But there'll be rotation you expect from that Leicester game. Probably a similar-ish lineup to what we saw against Aston Villa, which is probably close to their strongest lineup. In terms of league position, not too much riding on it for United. They'll still want to wrap up second place, but they've got the top four now wrapped up, and towards the end of the season, they'll want to keep players fresh, but also not want to risk injuries before the Europa League final. For Liverpool, obviously, much more important game. I mean, it's obviously an important game for both sides because it's this fixture, and they both love nothing more than getting one over the other. But for Liverpool, much more important in terms of the league position, top four spot. Said ahead of the Southampton game, it was must win for them to stay in the top four race. Jurgen Klopp has said they have to win their 4 remaining games to stay in the top 4 race. I'm not sure I quite subscribe to that, just because Leicester, with their 3 remaining games, I can see them dropping a few points, maybe even dropping points in all of those games. So there might be a glimmer of hope for Liverpool to drop points in one of those games. I'm predicting that to come in this game, actually. When this game was initially scheduled, I went for 1-1 draw. I think I'm sticking with that. I was close to going with Liverpool just because they need it more. And obviously because I really want Liverpool to win in this game. But I've gone for a 1-1 draw in the end. I think any drop points could prove to be fatal. Obviously, it's out of Liverpool's hands, but they just haven't been anywhere near clinical enough in front of goal. Their record at Old Trafford isn't great, and this fixture usually ends as a draw. So all of those factors combined, I've gone for a 1-1 in this one. I'd obviously love to see Liverpool win. I think a victory would be huge for them, and if they do go and win this game, sitting 3 points off the top 4, depending on obviously what Leicester do against Man United. If they do go and win this game, huge shot in the arm for their top 4 hopes. But yeah, I'm predicting a 1-1 draw on this one.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? A really tough one, more so than perhaps it normally would be, considering the circumstances around the game. And I do agree with what you said. I do think there'll be complete whole changes for the Leicester game, and then it will be, pretty much what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer considers to be his strongest side, close to the Villa one. Maybe I'd probably put Cavani in the strongest side, but it all depends on Maguire, I suppose, doesn't it? Obviously, I don't know at this exact moment if there's been an actual medical update on Maguire. Obviously, it looks like he's going to be out of the Leicester game, but I think at the time, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said that it could be, a 2-day or a 2-week thing, depending on, whether it was just a blow to the ankle, or whether it was a bit of a twist, or maybe a bit of both. And obviously that will depend. But yes, it's a really tough one. I think the fact that obviously, as you say, there's not much to fight for United, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is just so. Obviously, Manchester United always want to beat Liverpool, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 11 years as a player at the club, academy manager, now the first team manager, he hates Liverpool, doesn't he? You just know it. I think there was that interview when he was at Cardiff, and I can't remember exactly what they were saying, something about, Liverpool, and he just said, I couldn't care less. He just doesn't like them, does he? And you can tell that he's going to make a lot of changes for the Leicester game. And I was so close to going 1-1 as well, but United's home, they won the last 5 in all competitions at home. Old Trafford was a problem earlier this season. I just can't. I mean, is Kabak still out for Liverpool?
Well, I'm not sure Klopp's done an official update yet, but it looks like it could be. It's quite a quick turnaround, yeah.
I'm just struggling. I mean, if you go back to, Reece Williams, Nat Phillips, I know Fabinho could go back there, but I'm just struggling to look at that Liverpool 11 and go and back them not to get beat at Old Trafford, considering I know United played twice in a short space of time, but if they were playing both sets of players, then I'd be going completely different. But there will be loads of changes to the Leicester game, so it'll arguably be a break from the Villa game to the Liverpool game for a lot of those players. And I've just had to go United here, Barney, and I'm not doing it out of, because I do usually go 1-1. I think I went 1-1 when this was a couple of weeks ago, but the result against Southampton, the injuries you've still got, the centre-back partnership that might go on the field, and the fact that United, as I say, will be having secured top 4 against Villa. They know they can rest players against Leicester, and I just feel like they could, really dent Liverpool's chances. And I wouldn't be surprised to see 1-1. And like I say, I did go that, but I really did think you would go that. And as we got to keep the competition interesting, I was never going to back Liverpool, let's be honest. So, yeah, just 2-1. I think it'll be really tight. As I say, I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw at all. And something like 0-0 might even be there, depending on... There's a lot of different factors that could come up between this game. It's difficult when United play Leicester. But, yeah, as it stands, just gone 2-1 United.
Yeah, I did consider 0-0 because that's been a common scoreline in these big games this season. On Reece Williams, I've got to say I don't like it when he plays. I don't trust him really enough. And he's obviously a young player. It's hard to criticise him when he's been brought in. He was never meant to be in the first team this season. Certainly not as often as he has been. But it's just seems like he's got a mistake in him, and it's surprising every time quite how slow he is. There's that chance against Southampton when Alisson had to come out and smother it, where his turning circle was just so slow and just didn't work his feet out. Just doesn't quite look cut out for this level. And he might improve. He's a young player, but he doesn't quite look cut out for this level. And as you say, if he's at the back with that Man United full strength attack coming at him, it would be a worry for Liverpool fans. Potentially Fabinho might go back there because he's a lot more consistent. But Matt's going for a Manchester United win in that one. Obviously a huge game to end this midweek round of fixtures. I'm going for a draw in that one. Thank you, Matt. We'll be back on Friday for our next round of predictions for the weekend fixtures, the game week 36 of the season. We'll have previews for all of those games, and we've got previews for all of these games, plus many more across Europe. Again, plenty of fascinating stories going on across Europe's top leagues. La Liga at the top and bottom is a fascinating story. Serie A top 4 race is heating up a lot at the moment. So plenty of fascinating stories to go and check out on our previews on sportsmile.co.uk. You can subscribe to this podcast on all the usual channels to make sure you don't miss an episode. And you can also subscribe on YouTube to make sure you don't miss an episode. As I mentioned, Matt and I will be back on Friday for the next weekend's round of fixtures. So we look forward to seeing you again then.